Who said I thought you didn't listen?
Pulling your leg.
Actually, I tell Bhai Prabhu sometimes that you're always saying the same thing again and again in every class. And then he's saying that's reinforcing the message, you know.
There's a saying, repetition of a good thing is a good thing.
Yeah.
It had drilled into us.
How's your kirtan group going over there?
Good, yes, very nice. And we're having one at this house, at our place again, since Gianty's mum and dad are here. So
You've had a couple of those, haven't you? Haven't you had a couple of
We've had one. We've had one at this place, and we're going to have more in a couple of weeks, while taking advantage of her parents being here and making it easy for them that we don't have to travel anywhere else. So there's a good excuse to have it here, so that's good.
How do they like the place?
Yes, so far so good. It's been a whole new experience for them.
Yeah.
Simple living, high thinking.
No, they're liking it. They seem very, I mean, they're not finding it extremely out of the, you know. Yeah, they're appreciating it, yeah.
Is that Josh?
Good day. Hello.
Josh.
Hey, Josh.
Okay, time is precious as always, so let's get into it and offer respect to the spiritual master, and then we'll continue where we left off last week. So beginning of the introduction.
Hello, Bob. Sorry.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Oh, there we go. Excellent.
Sean's
Hey, Abe, I have
Yes,
a request, Abe. But,
Yes.
at some point today, can we talk about the wandering around like a fool quality of a sannyasin?
Oh, okay. Okay. Sometimes what Bob's referring to, if I got it right, I'm just trying to feed it back to you, Josh, and tell me if I've got it wrong. So sometimes a renunciant, which we call a sannyas, in the sannyas order, ashram, sometimes a renounced person may, to external vision, appear to be acting like a fool, and you're just wandering around apparently aimlessly and doing very unusual things. There's actually another name for that particular kind of renunciant, because a general sannyasi may not be looking like a wandering fool, but there is a particular kind of sannyasi called an avadhuta. Avadhuta. A-V-A-D-H-U-T-A. Avadhuta. Or avadhuta. So avadhut refers to one whose behavior is very extraordinary, very unusual, and may appear to be like a mad person, although they're not at all mad, of what the normal definition of mad is. They're not at all mad, but they, to a external vision, from an ordinary person's point of view, they appear like a mad person. So we can talk about that. Well, shall we talk about it now? Because sometimes the end is a bit difficult and I go over time, so you might have to go too. Yeah.
Can I ask Josh why he asks that? I'm interested in that. But
it's an unusual kind of question to get. Okay. Did you come across one of those recently? Did you in Newcastle?
No, I feel like one. I feel like
one. Yeah. Well, last week you were wandering around on the beach. Maybe that was just here and there and everywhere, huh?
Look. This, I think, the thing that I actually think. Okay. So you can look at it two ways. You can look at it as, well, a renunciate who sees more of the truth of life and sees that many of the social conventions are not so important, that the rule of the law isn't as important as the law of the universe.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that the conventions of materialistic society really don't often line up with the rules of spiritual life.
Yes. Yeah.
So therefore, you could conclude that a consequence of spiritual life is that you may start to behave in aberrant ways. But
Say that last thing again. I missed that. What was the last thing you said?
I said, hang on a second. My reception might go bad. Hang on. I apologise. I think that. Hang on. Okay, I'm home now. Okay. So, when you become born into Krishna consciousness,
Yeah.
and you have a new way of living,
Yes.
and are no longer the pinnacle of your behavioural guidelines, then you may start behaving in a way that is more compatible with Krishna consciousness, and you may start sort of willfully disregarding or dropping the focus on the normal rules. Right?
Yeah.
My question, though, is behaving in unusual, foolish, aberrant, or mad ways a tool in itself to assist your spirituality?
Okay.
If you in Ashtanga Yoga, we contort and twist ourselves. We deliberately suspend the breath. We induce states of murcha, like in Sanskrit, murcha, like a swoon.
Yeah.
As you've told us stories of swamis that sort of fall over. So great is the intensity of their practice, and these kinds of things. So there's clearly a link between good, strong spiritual practice and some measure of suspending norms.
Yeah.
Sometimes, personally, I find that the drudgery and routine of a material life is hellish, right? It's unpleasant, as we've discussed it a lot of the time. But it's this weird kind of trap of addiction as well. And sometimes all that you can do, and I think the COVID stuff really showed it to me and showed it to a lot of people, is sometimes you've got to just do something strange, something completely out of the routine. You just twirl around in your front yard singing a song until the neighbours ask you if you're okay. Something unusual, something irrational, because rationality is not God.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
If you're always filtering every single thing you do through the lens of intellectual rationality and reason, then it's just a hellish way to live. I think it's very, very boring. And sometimes, the light of Krishna consciousness will come and strike you and go, you must do this. And if you second guess every single thing that ever comes to you, you'll never act.
Yeah. Yeah.
I reckon that's a really good discussion, a really a good question.
Now, what could be more irrational, for example, for a human being, than holding their breath for 2 minutes? Like in pranayama, you do that. You hold your breath. You exhale until there is no air in your lungs anymore, and then you lock the musculature in, and then you deliberately don't breathe, even though the brain is saying, can I please breathe? And you may be trembling and sweating and feeling these physical symptoms, but you persevere beyond that, and then you have these breakthrough experiences where your consciousness is altered. where you have this sense of tranquility and greater vision.
Yes. Yeah.
Spirituality is frequently irrational. If we're so confined by these norms of society, sometimes doing something irrational, even if it's not that spiritual, just because it's irrational, is a benefit, I suspect.
What sort of mad things you been doing, Josh?
Yeah, Josh, are you home or in a home?
I'm in a nice little room. They look after me very well. Look, I have a picture of Krishna on the wall.
Oh, that's nice.
But look, sometimes what I'll do is I'll even I'm a yoga teacher that I know a fair few people, so sometimes it can be liberating to kind of act not like a monk, just to swear or to be a bit kind of flamboyant and or just simply express an interest in something that's not yoga.
Yes. Okay, so a few things come to mind. So, and some different perspectives we'll look at. So, one perspective is that when we're advanced in spiritual life, we're not so much concerned with what the public think of us, but we're more concerned with what the Supreme Being thinks of us. So we'll act in such a way that pleases the Supreme Being, whereas in ordinary consciousness, we try to act in such a way that people around us will like us, the public will like us and everything like that, and follow the social norms and try to please the general public. And just thinking about the early days in the Hare Krishna movement, when Prabhupada told his disciples to chant Hare Krishna on the streets, that definitely would have appeared to the general masses as pretty outlandish and pretty crazy to see people running around the streets wearing bed sheets and with their hands in the air and jumping up and down and chanting Hare Krishna, things like that. And actually, many of those Hare Krishnas, especially in your country, especially in Australia, they were thrown in jail in the late 60s and early 70s. Many Hare Krishnas were thrown in jail for chanting on the streets, and it was sort of against the sort of so-called social norms and rules and everything like that, and it upset some people, didn't like it and like that, and eventually it was the devotees just kept on going, and because the guru was telling them to do it, and eventually the rules changed, the law changed, and eventually it became an acceptable behavior to chant on the streets and everything like that. But it was definitely very difficult in the beginning, and people saw it as very crazy behavior. Although there's incredibly vast philosophical scriptural conclusions and reasoning and logic behind why devotees of the Lord chant and dance and everything like that. It's not just a sentimental kind of emotional activity that causes one to do that, although emotions may come, definitely, but there's a lot of reasoning and logic behind why that activity should be done. It's actually a kind of sacrifice called Harinam Sankirtan Yagya. So it's a sacrifice recommended for Kali Yuga in the scriptures, but of course ignorant people are not going to see it that way. That's one angle, is we're not so concerned in spiritual life what the public think, but we're trying to act in such a way that pleases the Supreme. However, if the spiritual movement is, one of the purposes of the movement is to try to attract people to the philosophy, and you want to be able to relate to the people, so that you can communicate with them and try to help them come to spiritual awareness and try to help to enlighten them. So you don't want to act in too unusual fashion. So in that mindset of, you know, you're trying to help the other people, then you for that purpose you may try to fit in with them, so that you can help them. Fit in with them so you can help them. So sometimes someone that's spiritually very elevated might come down, apparently come down to a level which is like blending in more with the common masses, although their consciousness is way above it. But they come down to a level where they can mix with the common people and everything like that, and not appear to be too unusual. So that may be a conscious thing that's done, and so there's different levels of Krishna consciousness. The highest is called Uttamadhikari, the topmost level, completely transcendental person. And then there's Madhyamadhikari, the middle class, and then there's Kanistha Adhikari, means like a neophyte or sort of just starting out on the spiritual path. So it's said that to help spread spirituality, sometimes that topmost Uttamadhikari will come down to the Madhyam Adhikari platform to be able to interact with people. Because on the highest platform, what they're thinking, hey Gulshan, Hare Krishna.
Right.
Welcome, nice to see you.
For the shop.
So Josh has just asked us a question about sometimes a transcendentalist, a spiritualist, a sannyasi may act in very unusual ways. Why is that? How is that? So the term for that's called Avadhuta, behaviour, very unusual behaviour. So we're just discussing that subject before we start our regular one. So yeah, so sometimes they'll come down to that platform. Why? Because on the highest platform, it's said that the devotee sees that everything's God and God's energy. So ultimately, everyone's already in God's energy. Everyone's connected to God, ultimately, which is a fact that there's nothing that has no relationship with God. Everything is either God or God's energy. There's nothing other than Brahman. Everything, even the material world made of earth, water, fire, air, ethers, and mind, intelligence, ego, everything is all resting on Brahman. So for the most highly developed person, they don't distinguish between the spiritual energy and the material energy. They see just everything as spiritual energy. So for them, there is no Maya, there's no illusion. Everyone is already resting within the energy of the Supreme Being. So for them, they see that everyone is already Krishna conscious, which is a very interesting perspective. They see that everyone is already Krishna conscious. They're serving the material energy, but they see that the material energy is also God's energy. See what I mean? The material energy is also God's energy. There's spiritual energy and material energy, but both is God's energy. So they see that in the material world, people are serving the material energy, but the material energy is an external energy of God. So indirectly, they're already engaged in serving the Lord. So for that person is not going to reach out to others. That person is not going to reach out to others. They're going to be they're not going to do any so-called preaching activities, reaching out to others. They're just absorbed in their ecstatic love and feelings, and they're oblivious to the public. They're oblivious to the public rules and feelings and sentiments and everything like that. So they might wander around naked without any clothes, although society says put on clothes. We're not recommending doing that, walking around without clothes. Actually, it is recommended that human beings wear clothes, But on that level of consciousness, they're just oblivious. They're not aware of their body. They're just always thinking about the Supreme Being and their loving relationship.
Can I read a couple of lines of this? Look at an 18th century Sanskrit text here. I'll read
sure.
the 2 lines.
Yeah.
The sage shines supreme, silent and placid, with the ground under a tree as his resting place, and with his palm as the begging bowl, wearing no clothes, decorated with the jewel of non-attachment. The great recluse, who has awakened to perfect knowledge and bliss, effortlessly rests in his house, which is the deserted bush on the riverbank, on the comfortable bed of the soft sands.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
be naked and live at the beach.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
the
they're
Naga
never
Baba.
going to be they're never going to be thinking about their bodily requirements like food, or I need shelter, or I need clothes, or anything like that. They're just fully absorbed in the Supreme, and the Supreme is taking care of all their needs automatically.
And
The example is given. Sometimes these personalities are compared to a python, compared to these Avadhutas. Highly developed people are compared to a python. What's the characteristic of a python?
Well, I mean, they do anything they want, don't they?
I mean, they don't work, and then whenever somebody come around to eat, they'll eat and then just lay down.
Yeah, that's right. So they make no endeavor to go anywhere to get food or anything. They just wait for the food to come to them.
Yeah.
So it's like that.
And then Krishna creates the food for them as well.
Yeah, see, and then that's the Supreme Being arranges that food comes to them. And you see, generally, pythons are very fat, right? They're very fat. And it's not because they're going far and wide to look for food, but the food's coming right to them. So like that, they're so in tune with the Supreme that everything's arranged for them what they need. They don't make any effort. Hello, Pussycatty.
This cat can find her own food. She's not rely on Josh or anything. She's got a hunting quality, and she'll find her own food. She can survive on her own.
So like an Avadhuta is going to see the cat as a manifestation of the Supreme too, and the dog and the bird and the tree, and doesn't distinguish between a black person and a white person and a man or a woman or anything like that. It just sees everywhere as just different manifestations of the Brahman. So they're completely oblivious to all of our so-called social norms and everything like that.
I'll read you 2 more lines, right? Because you're basically reading this text out of your own mind, seriously.
Yeah.
The yogi sees nothing, nor does he speak. He does not hear any word that is spoken. He remains immersed, steadfast in the incomparable abode, unmoving like a log of wood. The great sannyasi who knows the truth of all the Vedas wanders like an ignorant fool, unnoticed, devoid of any sense of difference, seeing only perfection everywhere and in all creatures.
That's right.
That's the ultimate stage.
So that's called, if you look at the 5th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, you can check it out now or sometime. 5th chapter, text 18, talks about that kind of consciousness. Vidyavanaya sampane brahmani gavi hastani shuni chaiva supakacha pandita samadarshana. So it's called samadarshana, equal vision, seeing everything the same, seeing that.
Chapter and verse?
5th chapter, text 18.
The humble sage, by the virtue of the true knowledge, see with the equal vision as a learned, as a gentle Brahman, a cow, elephant, a dog, and dog eater.
So, because there's a class like that in Vedic culture that eat dogs.
Shudra.
And of course, we have that class in China now.
In China, yes.
So, but that's been there a long time.
Josh, if your cat is missing, just check your neighbors are not Chinese.
Yeah, so they see everyone the same. They don't distinguish but the external body. Because what is the same? What seeing everything is the same. What's the same? I mean, externally it's not the same. Externally everything's different. But where is there something?
They're not a body.
Yeah, the body's all different.
We are not
but
body.
What is the same as the soul? as the supreme soul, the same supreme soul is within Paramatma, is within the heart of every living entity, and there's also an eternally blissful soul, individual soul within the body. So we all in this have the same quality, that we all have that eternal blissful nature temporarily in the body. I mean, we have been in the past before in this current body. We have been in the body of cats. We've been in the body of dogs and so forth. But we're the same soul, so the soul never changes. So qualitatively, we're all the same, although we're in externally different bodies. But on that higher platform, you're mainly focused on that spiritual platform. So you don't see these material discrepancies, dualities. We call it dualities, right? So they're not seeing those dualities. They're in the Advaita oneness. They're seeing everything in oneness like that. Everything's intimately connected with the Supreme. One other thing, see, these highly advanced people, they don't like to waste time. And often materialistic people will bug them a lot. If a materialistic person sees a spiritually elevated sannyasi, often in Indian culture anyway, this is there. I mean, it's not there in the West currently, but in Indian culture, it has been there and is still there. If you see a sannyasi, an advanced spiritually progressive person, you'll go to them and ask them for some ashivadam, some material blessings. Oh, my dear saintly person, sannyasi, can you please help me get a wife? Can you please help me to get more money? Can you please help my wife and I to have a kid? You know, can you please help me to pass my exams? Now, they're busy in their spiritual practices, chanting and remembering and worshipping the Lord and so forth like that. Do you think that's what they want to spend time doing? Giving people material blessings? They're not even coming to them and say, please give me love for God. Please give me love for Krishna. Please help me to become advanced in bhakti. They're not asking for that. They're asking for temporary material benedictions. So from that saintly person's point of view, that's really painful waste of time to deal with whole queues and lines of these kind of people. So often what they'll do, I'll give you an example of what they do. There was one in our session, a few people back from Prabhupada, the gurus, that he lived next to a toilet. And now, especially in India, the toilets are not very nice to get anywhere near them. They generally smell a lot, bad smells. But he set up his ashram right outside a latrine, right outside a toilet. So, you know, ordinary people are going to definitely think that's an Avadhuta. That's a very crazy guy. He's living next to a toilet. So why did he do that, though? Because he's very deep in his consciousness, and he doesn't want to get diverted by all these nonsense people bothering him, pestering him. So to keep them away, because of course they won't want to come next to a smelly toilet. So, and he can tolerate that. For him, that's no problem because he's absorbed in Brahman and the spiritual life. So he would act in very unusual ways. And that was one of the motivations for his unusual behavior, was to keep the ordinary materialistic people away from him, from wasting his time. So that's another reason why. So consciously they might do that on purpose, to keep the ordinary people away from them. And then unconsciously they may do it because they're just so absorbed in the Supreme, their relationship with the Supreme Bhakti, that they're completely oblivious of everything else. And they don't care what anyone else thinks. They just care what the Lord thinks, and they're absorbed in that relationship. So sometimes they might fall on the ground in love for the Lord. Sometimes they might cry. Some do so many things, shivering and hair standing on end. And it's called Asta Sattvika Bhav. So many emotions are coming and like that. So sometimes unconsciously that behavior is there, and sometimes consciously there's a purpose, a plan behind it. And sometimes they're not planning, and others are not planning it, but it's just they can't not do it because they're just completely directed by the Lord how to behave. It's not a conscious thing. Okay, now I'm going to cry to show the public that I'm advanced. No, they don't do that. That's not a true advanced devotee. That they're like, going to put on a show for the public.
Few of them, they are like that in India. They sell the spirituality.
They're called cheaters.
Yes, they sell the spirituality.
They're called crooks or cheaters.
Yes.
But a truly spiritually advanced person is not going to consciously, okay, now there's 100 people there. Now I'm going to put on a show and roll on the ground and, shiver and cry and everything like that. So that's called cheating. But sometimes unconsciously, they can't hold it back, and it just comes pouring out the feelings for the Supreme, and you're trying to hold it back, but you can't. You don't want to make it look like a cheap thing, a show. Of course, that's a concern for a spiritually advanced person too. You don't want to make it into a cheap thing. You don't want to make such a high, elevated, loving relationship into like just some cheap external show. That sort of cheapens the whole thing. It's very personal. It's very intimate. The relationship between the Lord and his devotee. It's not something you just want to, do to make a show of it, make some, profit or get some prestige out of it. It's a very intimate and confidential
I think it's an
thing.
individual. You can't even tell anyone. It's an individual thing between you and your God. It's just what you're experiencing. It's yours. It's not, Bob or Josh's experience. If you experience something or I experience something, this is mine. That's my truth. It's no benefit to Bob or Josh for that. They got to be their own truth.
Yeah. So normally those feelings will be hidden. They'll be hidden from the public. But sometimes, like I say, the devotee can't hold it in, and it just like if the flood builds up behind the dam, they have a floodgate. It'll just burst out. Can't contain it. So sometimes that's there too. So there's a few different factors there. Does that that was a very interesting discussion, very unexpected, but very interesting, and I hope that shed some light on the matter. Anything else you want to say, Josh, or anyone else?
Hang on. There we go. Yeah. Thank you. I even can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you loud and clear. See you.
Even I feel like even asking that question and being so animated about it, is like disobeying social conventions sometimes. Right? Yeah. We're at a Bhagavad Gita discussion group, and one should comport oneself in an appropriate way. Yeah. Sometimes these social conditions really feel stifling.
Yeah, well, I personally have no problem with you asking that question, and I'm very happy that you did present it in a very animated way and with a lot of background and insight there. And I can see what you're saying. It's just ridiculous the whole way society's going at the moment with this COVID thing, and everyone's so paranoid and afraid. And sometimes you just want to go, just do something a bit outrageous because it's just so, like you say, boring. And you all got to stay inside, and you're not allowed to go anywhere, and you have to wear a mask, and everything's just so controlled and restricted. And of course, it's a very unnatural situation because originally we're all a completely free soul called Mukta Purusha. We're completely free and we can do whatever we like. So of course, being in the material world and material body, we are restricted a lot. There's birth, there's death, there's old age, there's disease. You have to work hard to keep the body alive. So there's already so many conditions. And now with this COVID virus, it's just doubled and tripled and quadrupled and tenfold, all these conditions and rules and limitations and everything. So it's especially for someone that's starting to open up and starting to become more free due to spiritual practice, and that we can see it's completely ridiculous that people have got to this situation, and it's our own doing. Like we've been reading here in the Bhagavad Gita, right, this 14:15, that it's saying that the Lord doesn't take responsibility for our situations in life. It's because why can't we point the finger at the Lord for the COVID virus? We say it's Krishna's fault. COVID virus is Krishna's fault. Why are we suffering? It's God's fault. No, because actually, because of our previous desires, then the Lord is just dishing out the reactions for our different desires, our different past activities. So he's very neutral. He's not involved in someone's pious reactions or sinful reactions. He's just dishing them out. And Prabhupada gives the example of a judge. Can you blame the judge if a judgment is made that the person is going to have life imprisonment? Or previously they used to have the death penalty, right? What kind of judge is this? He's given this person life imprisonment, or he's condemned him to death, or like that, or he has to pay a fine of $500,000. What a terrible judge! What a horrible judge! Was anyone going to say like that?
No.
Some might say like that, but is that fair? Is the judge partial? That he's rewarding someone and punishing someone?
No, it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be. He's neutral, isn't he? He's just administering the law.
Yes.
He's administering the law. If you follow the law, he'll reward you. If you break the law, he'll punish you. But he's not like your friend or your enemy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's what this section is talking about. That although the Lord is in control of everything, but he's making arrangements according to the desires of the living entities.
So the global warming is we break the law.
What's that?
The global warming is like we break the law, and then consequences
so the reaction
we
has
have
come
to.
as this COVID virus is a reaction. And it's not because any demigod or the Supreme Lord hates us or anything like that, or they just want to see us suffer, but because we have broken the law of material nature too many times.
How come there's a few people breaking the law, but there's the 700 billion people suffering?
Hey, there's only
It's only few people break the law, but millions of people are suffering.
No, but it's for different degrees. I mean, I'm personally not suffering very much.
I mean, how many people the COVID cases in UK?
Josh looks happy rubbing his cat and doing yoga and everything. So there's different. Although we're all living on the same earth, but some people are more happy. Some people are suffering more. I mean, some people right now are probably in hospital with a ventilator on them, and they're really suffering. And other people
that's their karma, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. So we're not all getting the same reactions. And, all these kind of things happening might bring us a spiritually more advantageous position.
At the same time happening, like, 200 years ago when war happening, and how many people died in the war. It's not even their fault, but they died.
No, but you don't know what they were doing before.
That's right,
Prabhupada said the reaction for animal killing is we're slaughtered in the war. So, I mean, those people that might now be soldiers and shipped off in a war or Second World War or whatever, in their previous lives, they might have slaughtered cows or sheep or whatever it is, and now they're getting slaughtered by Mother Nature. So nothing happens by chance. And don't think that anyone that's suffering is innocent.
No.
And Kushani, if you have to suffer the burden of witnessing on the news other people in trouble while you sit in comfort, there's not much of a price to pay.
Definitely not. Yeah.
But it's still something, It's the collective karma of the planet. We are all in this together, and there are certain things that we have done. And, some of us get to learn the lesson by simply observing it in other people. And some of us have to learn the lesson by actually attracting those dire circumstances to us.
But you still do feel for those people,
Of course.
Yeah, of course. And therefore, the soft-hearted devotee of the Lord, although doesn't have any personal difficulty because he has a loving relationship with the Lord, has one problem in the material world, and that's seeing other people suffering. And therefore, what's their only duty remaining in this world? They don't really have anything else to do, because at the end of this life, they're going to get moksha, mukti, liberated, and they're happy with their loving relationship with the Lord now. But there's only one thing left to do, and that's to help other people. You know, we've experienced how much happiness this yoga process, whether it's, you know, Ashtanga yoga or Bhakti yoga, or whatever, how much happiness has brought us. And we want to give other people that opportunity to come out of their suffering. And we know how much we used to suffer before we took it up, you know, and how much difference it's made in our life. So, and we want to help other people to also get that opportunity to come out of it. And so definitely it's not that, you know, you're just suffering, your karma, good on you, it's, you know, you deserved it and everything. It's not like we think like that. But no, we feel sorry for them that because of their been acting in ignorance, and now they're suffering the results of acting in ignorance. But we want to help them come out of ignorance. And that's the way to do it. That why are we doing crazy things and therefore suffering the result of that is because of ignorance. So if we help to enlighten people, give them some spiritual knowledge, like this Bhagavad Gita, that's the whole idea, is that we can change our activities, change our behavior, and then our future will become much brighter. So yeah, it's not that we just condemn people and, you know, happy that they're suffering or whatever. No, we're unhappy that people are suffering. And we know what the solution is, and we try to do that to whatever our capacity is.
And the fact that we allow ourselves to actually observe, because it's quite possible for all of us really to have zero exposure to the suffering of others. We can just switch off the news, switch off this and this, and we can, even if we need to, we can go up to the Gloucester or the Barrington Tops and live in a cabin there, and we can have zero awareness of anyone else's suffering if we want to. But you know, in a funny way, we are deliberately exposing ourselves to the suffering of others because we do understand that obligation and that desire to help others.
It says in Srimad Bhagavatam that the vast majority of transcendentalists, they're just concerned about their own spiritual advancement or emancipation, freedom from the material world. But the topmost devotees of the Lord, they remain in human society and don't just run off to the Himalayas like the rest and everything, for the purpose of, you know, acting compassionately to try to uplift the suffering souls. And that's actually more higher platform, because it's another kind of selfishness, isn't it? That I just want to get myself out of this material world. I
don't care about the other world.
You know, so I just care about my body, right? And then the spiritual, I just care about my soul, you know, but still it's about me, whether it's me, the body, in ignorance, or in knowledge, you know, me, the soul, but still just about me. But higher than just thinking about even me, the soul, that I want to get the soul back home, back to Godhead, liberated, is to think how I can take as many other souls with me as I can, you know, and that's more pleasing to Krishna. More pleasing to Krishna. And Krishna says that in the 18th chapter, text 68, I think from memory, that he says, no one is more dear to me than he who spreads this message of Bhagavad Gita. No one is more dear to me, nor will there ever be one more dear to me. Imagine if you got parents, right, and you got a whole bunch of kids, and all the kids leave home. All the kids leave home. How will the parents be feeling?
Very sad, like, you know.
See ya, bye, mummy, bye, daddy. How will the parents feel?
Very happy.
Maybe in modern society, previously not. They're very attached to their kids. So, you know, they love their kids. So imagine if, say there's 10 kids, one of the kids comes home, stops being a rebel, and suffers a lot leaving the mum and dad, and then comes back running to mum and dad, and mum and dad will be very happy. But what if that one kid?
He'll get all the blessings.
He'll get all the blessings, yes. But he'll get even more blessings if he goes back out and tries to bring back the other 9 kids. Hey, it's so much better at home. You're just suffering out here. You have to work so hard and you're struggling and everything. Just come back home and everything will be provided for you. You'll be safe and protected and everything like that, maintained very nicely. Come back home. So if he brings 1 or 2 or 3 or all the other 9 kids home, then how happy the mum and dad will be with him. You cannot imagine. So like that, the more we can bring Krishna's children back to him, the more happy Krishna will be with us. So, but apart from that, it's not just we're calculating that, but it's just natural that we don't like to see others suffering. So did you see that in text 68 and 69? It's saying that, that they're very dear.
18, 68, 69.
Yeah. 69 says, there is no servant in this world more dear to me than he, nor will there ever be one more dear. So you can't get better than that. Okay, so let's chant a bit of Sanskrit. Let's go back to where we were at. Fifth chapter, text 15. Well, we did 15 last week, 16.
16.
Text 16. So let's recite the Sanskrit. Okay, 5th chapter, text 16. Karma Yoga, Action and Krishna Consciousness. So I'll say one line, if you can please repeat after that. Jnanena tu tadagyanam.
Jnanena tu tadagyanam.
Yesham nashitamatmana.
Yesham nashitamatmanam.
Tesham aditya vajjnanam.
Tesham aditya vajjnanam.
Prakashayati tatparam.
Prakashayati tatparam.
Would anyone like to have a go at leading the chanting? Good practice.
Oh.
Jnanena tum tat jnanam.
Jnanena tu tadagyanam.
Yesha nashimatmam.
Yesham nashitam atmana.
Tesham aditya vajnanam.
Tesham aditya vajjnanam.
Prakashayati tatparam.
Prakashayati tatparam. Very good, Gulshan. Anyone else want to have a go?
Very good.
Okay. Bob, do you want to read the English, please?
When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which neoscience is destroyed, then this knowledge reveals everything, as the sun lights up everything in the daytime.
So this is saying, however, one is enlightened, this verse. So in the previous verse was talking about someone that's not enlightened, that they're thinking that they are the doer of their activities in the material, they're in control. And also another ignorance is thinking that the Lord is responsible for whatever suffering that we're going through. They don't take responsibility. They push the responsibility onto someone else or onto the Lord like that. So that's nescience. Nescience means like darkness. It means like ignorance. So this is saying, however, if one is enlightened, so one's not in darkness of ignorance, one is enlightened. How do we get enlightened? We get by knowledge. And what does the knowledge do? It destroys the darkness destroys the darkness of nescience. It reveals everything. So this is a good example how knowledge takes away ignorance. Just like when the sun comes up in the morning, the darkness is blown away immediately. How long does it take for darkness to go away?
Immediately.
Immediately.
But
So,
depends. In England, doesn't happen. That sun doesn't come much in England. In London, doesn't rise much.
too many clouds. Yeah. So, but when the sun does come up, then it doesn't take long for the darkness to go away. It's immediately. So in the same way, as soon as you get transcendental knowledge, immediately all the ignorance goes away. All the darkness of ignorance goes away. So ignorance is compared to darkness and knowledge is compared to sunlight. So you can remember those analogies, very good analogies.
Sorry, can you repeat that for me? What you just said?
So darkness is compared to, or ignorance is compared to darkness, right? Ignorance is compared to darkness. Because like in darkness, you can't see anything, right?
Yep.
You can't see anything. You can't see yourself. You can't see anybody else. So in ignorance also, you don't know who you are. You don't know anyone else. You don't understand anything in the right way. You see everything in the wrong way. You don't understand anything in factually the way it is. So ignorance is compared to darkness and knowledge is compared to light. So just like when you have knowledge, you can see everything properly.
Yep, of course. I just wasn't, I wasn't focused here. I've got it. I understand.
That's right. And like in the sunlight, you can see everything clearly. Okay, there's a tree over there. There's a house over there. There's you guys are over there. Like that, I can see myself, everything when the sun lights up. So in the same way, when you have knowledge, you can understand, oh, I'm the soul, you're all souls, there's a supreme soul, everything like that. These bodies are temporary, like that. This is no real happiness from temporary material things. The real happiness is within in our loving relationship with the Lord. So all these things one can see clearly, more and more knowledge one gets. Okay, so let's have a read. Josh, have you got the book there? You want to have a read? Oh, you're having lunch.
No, okay.
That's right.
The translation or the purport?
Purport.
Those who have forgotten Krishna must certainly be bewildered, but those who are in Krishna consciousness are not bewildered at all. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Sarvam Jnana Plavena Jnanang Nihi Sarva Karmani and Nahi Jnanena Sadrasham.
Yes.
Knowledge is always highly esteemed. And what is knowledge? Perfect knowledge is achieved when one surrenders under Krishna, as is said in the 7th chapter. Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavan Mam Prapadyate.
Yeah. Okay, we'll just have a little discussion about that, Josh. So, some very interesting things here. So, some of the Sanskrit, I'll just explain what Prabhupada was saying there. Well, first of all, he said that if you've forgotten God, if you've forgotten Krishna, definitely you're going to be bewildered. You have to be bewildered. If you don't know God, if you don't know Krishna, you must be a bewildered person. You must be an ignorant. And bewildered means you can't understand anything what's going on. You just can't be right. You're not perceiving anything properly. You completely, like bewildered means, the senses you're not able to perceive things in the proper way. Your senses are bewildered. So it means completely ignorant. And so definitely one is going to be bewildered. And those that are Krishna conscious, they're not bewildered. So that's Prabhupada's establishing that. If you're not conscious of the Supreme, you're definitely in ignorance, you're definitely bewildered. And if you are Krishna conscious of the Supreme, then you're not going to be bewildered. Okay? So, and then he's quoting some Sanskrit. So this jnana plavena, so this means jnana is knowledge, and plavena means like a boat. So that knowledge is compared to a boat. So sometimes the material world is compared to an ocean of suffering. Just like if we plonked any of you in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean or Pacific Ocean or Indian Ocean, how do you think you would go there, even if you're a good swimmer? I'm sure you're all good swimmers, but how would you go there?
Well, you'd be ruined as far as what direction you'd go in for the first thing, wouldn't you? I mean, you'd be lost.
Yeah, be completely lost, even if you're a good swimmer, because no one can swim, their way out of a gigantic ocean. It's just not possible. So sometimes the material is compared to a great ocean, and the waves in this ocean are birth and old age and disease and death. It's impossible to get out of that cycle of reincarnation like that. The karma bandhana, once locked into that, it's very, very difficult situation and very hard to get out of. But that it is possible to get out of this ocean of birth and death on the boat of transcendental knowledge, jnana plavena. Because what does this knowledge do? Jnana agni. So jnana, again, knowledge, we have the word knowledge. Agni is the word for fire, like the name of the fire god, the demigod in control of fire. His name's Agni Dev. So that knowledge is also compared to fire. What does fire do? It burns up things. So what does knowledge do? It burns up sinful reactions, burns up the reactions to our karma. And how it does this, that if we have knowledge, we won't want to do the crazy things anymore, the bad karma, the sinful things. We won't want to do it anymore. We won't want to, take drugs anymore, and gambling and meat eating and all these kind of things, and lying and cheating and stealing and all this bad karma that causes us to suffer and continue reincarnating in so many species and so forth. And we won't have these crazy desires to enjoy in the material world from external sense objects and sense gratification and so forth. So if we have knowledge, then we'll change our desires. We won't desire to do all these sinful things anymore. So it's said that knowledge is like fire. It burns up all the sinful reactions, bad karma. It burns up the desire to enjoy in the material world like that. So one's going to become detached. Through not see, two things are very important in Vedic culture: knowledge and detachment. These are very supportive to our spiritual progress. You can't really make spiritual progress without knowledge and detachment. And also, if one does make spiritual progress, then these two byproducts should be there. There should be knowledge and detachment. So they all go together: spiritual life and knowledge and detachment. You can't advance in spiritual life if you're ignorant and attached to the material world. So these are very important things. So the more knowledge one has, the benefit of that is one's gradually going to become more detached from the material world. And the more one becomes detached from the material world, one's going to become, hopefully, if you have knowledge of Krishna, one's going to become attached to the spiritual world. And so from there, we should look at the one he's quoting, the 7th chapter, text 19, Bahunam Janmanam Ante. So if you want to check that out, 7:19, which is saying, Bahunam, many, Janmanam, births, Ante, at the end. You know some of these words, Josh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Jnanavan. Jnana means knowledge. Van means possessing or full of. So one is full of knowledge. Jnanavan, one who's possessing knowledge, full of knowledge. After many births, say, one birth you get a bit of knowledge. The next birth you get a bit more knowledge. The next birth a bit more. So 10% knowledge, 15. Next birth 20. Then 30%. 40%, 50%, 75, 95, this birth 100%, when you're completely full of knowledge, then Jnanavam mam prapadyante. Prapadyante, very important word, surrenders to mam. This is Krishna speaking, so saying me. One surrenders to me, to Krishna. At the end of many births in the material world, when one's account of knowledge, imagine you got a account in the bank. So there's also, you have an account, a spiritual bank account, like you have a material one. So when that spiritual bank account, when the knowledge is full, then automatically that soul will surrender to the Supreme. And then there's more to that verse. Vasudeva Savamati Sa Mahatma Sadurlava. So when their knowledge is full, what do they realize? Vasudeva. So that's another name for Krishna. Vasudeva means all pervading. Basically that God is everywhere. That everything, like we said, is nothing other than God or God's energy that exists. That conception that there's something other than God, what do we call that? Well, what do we call that idea when we think there's something that's not God?
Avidya.
Yeah, avidya. And another word? That's true, avidya.
Oh,
Yeah.
delusion.
Delusion, yeah, the Sanskrit word for delusion is? Maya. Maya, illusion or delusion. When the illusion is very strong, we call that, what Josh said, delusion. Delusion means, wow, that's really heavy duty illusion. So you're really in the deep dark well of ignorance. Delusion, that's a good word. Yeah, so we think there's something that's not connected with the Supreme. But when your knowledge is full, you realize that everything's connected with the Supreme. So then you realize, well, I have to surrender. There's no choice, because there's nowhere to go outside of the energy of the Supreme. That we just accept that the Supreme is great and we are very small. Like that was in the beginning of the purport of the last verse. Remember the purport text 15 last week, that Prabhupada said the Supreme Lord is Vibhu. Vibhu means great. And he mentions in the purport Anu, we're very tiny. So when your knowledge is full, you realize that the Lord is greatest. He's the greatest and we're very tiny. So we should just surrender. That's very natural, isn't it?
So, having full knowledge doesn't necessarily mean you have to know every verse or of the Vedas or anything like that.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. No, it doesn't mean you have to know how a mobile phone is made and how to become a millionaire and all this kind of stuff like that. But you do know all the essential things. Like, let's look at that. So that's mentioned. What knowledge is mentioned. Let's see, dredge my knowledge. 13th chapter, text 8 to 12. There's a whole string there. 13 chapter, text 8 to 12. So this verse is establishing, according to Krishna, what knowledge is. Krishna's explaining what knowledge is.
That's the biggest verse.
That's the biggest verse. Amanitvam madambitvan ahimsa kshantirajyavam acharyo pasamam saucham. Like that, it goes on. So this is what knowledge is according to Krishna. Who wants to read it?
Humility, pridelessness, non-violence, tolerance, simplicity, approaching a bona fide spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, self-control, renunciation of the objects of sense gratification, absence of false ego, the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age and disease, detachment, freedom from entanglement with children, wife, home and the rest, even-mindedness amid pleasant and unpleasant events, constant and unalloyed devotion to me, aspiring to live in a solitary place, detachment from the general mass of people, accepting the importance of self-realization and philosophical search for the absolute truth. All these I declare to be knowledge, And besides this, whatever there may be is ignorance.
There you have it, right from the
Long
horse's
list.
mouth.
It's going to take me 10 million years.
Oh,
At least
it's
I'm
only
honest.
like 20 things you have to learn. Not hard.
Oh,
And it's interesting. In the purport, I'll just read one part of the purport, a little bit down, where about 5 lines down. This is not the interaction of the 24 elements. Well, hang on, I'll read the first line. This process of knowledge is sometimes misunderstood by the less intelligent men as being the interaction of the field of activity. But actually, this is the real process of knowledge. So what Prabhupada's saying, that commonly our idea of knowledge is the interaction of all the elements in this material world, what we call matter, right? Understanding matter. And we call that, if you understand matter, then that's knowledge. But Prabhupada's saying here, this is not the interaction of the 24 elements, because it's understood that matter, this material world, is composed of 24 elements and nothing more than that. But its knowledge has nothing to do with these 24 elements, as described before. This is actually the means to get out of the entanglement of those elements. So according to Krishna, and what Prabhupada's confirming here, is knowledge is how to get out of the material world. That's knowledge. So the knowledge we need is the knowledge of how to get out of this material world. That's knowledge. And that knowledge starts with humility. And like we said, humility is what? I am small and the Supreme is the greatest. He's Vibhu. I'm Anu and he's Vibhu. And, I'm dependent on him. And I need his protection and him to maintain me. And like that, that's the beginning of knowledge. That's the first step in the process of knowledge, is humility. And one can't progress in spiritual life without that humility. If one is proud, and the second one is pridelessness. So if one is full of pride and thinking, I'm great, I don't need Krishna, I don't need God, I'm God, then one obviously can't progress in spiritual life. So spiritual life begins with humility and being without pride, and just progressing on from that. And if we develop this knowledge, then we'll be able to get out of the entanglement of these 24 elements in the material world.
Abhay,
yes.
Can you just again remind me what false ego is?
Well, ego means the self. So we not want to get rid of the false ego. The ego. That's who we are. But what we want to get rid of is the false identification of ourself. So that false ego is identifying with the body.
Right.
That I think I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm black, I'm white, I'm, Bob, I'm Aaron, I'm this and that, I'm a Kiwi, I'm an Aussie. So that's the false ego identifying with the body and the material world. And this is my house and my country and so forth. There's all different aspects of the false ego. But the real ego is I am an eternal servant of Krishna.
Right.
So that's the real ego. So it's saying absence of false ego. It doesn't say absence of ego. It's not like a Buddhist idea. See, the Buddhist idea is to destroy the ego, to become nothing. Or the Mayavadi idea, impersonalists, they want to become one with God, one with Krishna, and get rid of the ego and become one with everything, or become nothing. So this is not like the Buddhist idea or impersonalist idea, but just get rid of the false ego, that false identification with the body. So we realize the body is just like a vehicle for the soul, but it's separate, just like the car and the driver. If the driver thinks they're a Mercedes or a Porsche or a BMW, that's like false ego.
Right.
I am a BMW. No, so we want to get rid of that. No, I'm the driver of the BMW, mate. I'm not the BMW. So we want to be, that should be absent. So knowledge means to have no more false ego. Therefore, to help that identification we have with the body, at the time of initiation from the guru, what's one thing we do?
Sorry, mate, what was the question?
at the time of being initiated by a guru, which is called Diksha.
Yeah.
Change the name.
Change the name, because we're just identifying with the name of which is the name of what?
Given by the society.
Yeah, for the what?
Body.
For the body.
Yeah.
So we wanted to help us detach from that long time. Like, I'd been identifying myself as Aaron for 20 years, 20 long years that I am Aaron. So to break that at 20 years old, I was given the name Abhay, which is a name, to help me connect with the soul, that the soul is not afraid. The soul has no fear. Why the soul has no fear? Abhay Charan. Because charan means feet. Whose feet? God's feet.
Lord Krishna.
So that I have to take shelter at God's feet, and then I'll have no fear. So it's to connect me more strongly with that spiritual identification with the Supreme. Therefore, someone will be given the name Krishna Das or Ram Das or whatever, to connect us, that I am a servant, Das, always Das, whatever our name is, Das. That our real ego is that we're the Dasa, we're the servant of the Supreme. We're not Fred or Joe or, some material elements made of earth and water and fire and, blood and mucus and bile and all these things. We're not this bag. We're not this bag of elements. That'll help reduce that. Does that make sense, Bob?
Yes.
Yeah. So Krishna here is saying that real knowledge is to help us get out of the material world. So that's what we should know those things. So when that knowledge is full, then definitely one will surrender to Krishna. And that's part of knowledge as mentioned here, where it says, constant and unalloyed devotion to me. Mai chanyena yogena, constant and unalloyed devotion to me. So naturally one will surrender, and that's part of knowledge. When one really has knowledge, one will surrender to Krishna. Until one surrenders to the Supreme, that means, you have some knowledge, but it's not full yet. It's not full. When what's the sign when the knowledge is full? Then one will surrender to the Supreme, like that. One will surrender to the Supreme. And as I've said, the Supreme has three aspects. There's the Brahman, that all-pervading energy, and then Paramatma, the super soul in the heart, and Bhagavan, the Supreme Person. So that Supreme will be on either of those three aspects.
So, Bob, your name is Haridas now.
Haridas.
Haridas. Harika Das.
Yeah.
Did you describe the soul as Brahman the other week as well?
Yes.
That confused me a little bit. I didn't.
Okay. Yeah, Brahman means the energy of the Supreme, a spiritual energy. So we are a spiritual energy. We are one of the spiritual energies of the Supreme. That spiritual light that pervades everything, which is called the Brahma Jyoti. Jyoti means light. So and Brahma means spiritual. So that spiritual light that pervades everywhere, just like the sunlight radiates out from the sun. So that spiritual light that all emanating from Krishna's body. So that spiritual light emanating from Krishna's body that illuminates the whole material, spiritual world and material world, that's called the Brahma Jyoti. So that Brahma Jyoti is made up of souls, like us. It's made up of souls. And this whole material world, with its mountains and skies and trees and forests and oceans and everything, is also resting on that Brahma Jyoti. So the background of this material world is that Brahma Jyoti also, which is all made up of souls. I know it's mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So even your room is made up of souls, the floor and the walls and the ceiling and everything, the trees and the mountains and the ocean, it's all made up of Brahman, of spiritual entities, unlimited spiritual entities. And there's, within this body, there's another soul, which is us, which is conscious of within this one body. There's so many souls. So we are Brahman. Like there's a Vedic aphorism, Aham Brahmasmi. I am Brahman. I am a spiritual entity. I am a spiritual entity. But we're not the Para Brahman. So how do you distinguish God from us if everything's Brahman? God is the Para Brahman. He's the supreme soul. We are all souls, but there is only one supreme soul, Para Brahman.
We are Atma and he's Paramatma.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you can look at the 10th chapter, text number 12, where Arjuna's realization of Krishna is Param Brahma, Param Dharma. So Param Brahma, he calls him, you are the supreme soul. So, but we are all Brahma. We are all Brahma. We are all souls. And everything is made up of souls, even in the material world, but just covered by Maya, covered by illusion. Is that still confusing, or it's a little bit sensible now?
Yeah, that confusion is not going to go in one class. Abhay Prabhu, it will take long time.
No,
because
it might go away in a second, or it might take millions of lifetimes.
But it's been dirty for how many million years? You got to clean, take a time. If I'm forced to clean it, I might break it.
I mean, death can take place anytime. Don't take too long.
Yep, that's
right.
No injection, no vaccine gonna work.
Try to become enlightened before COVID hits you. So, or something else. Try as best you can.
Well,
and if you don't worry. You've got another chance next life.
Prabhuji, if there is a chance, time to go. No COVID, no cancer, nothing. I can fall in from just one step and see you later.
We should take it seriously and try to advance our knowledge as fast as we can, because time is precious. We've got this wonderful human life, which has a more highly developed consciousness than any other species, and it's specially meant for self-realization. So we should take advantage and use every second of the clock to try to advance in our self-realization as much as possible. And this is a great opportunity which should not be missed. Otherwise, it's tragic if this human life is wasted in avidya. Looks like Josh has to go.
See you guys. Thank you very much.
No, you can't go, Josh.
Thanks for your wonderful question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Come and eat sometime, Saturday, Sunday. We got a South Indian and then paneer there every day.
Every day. It's heaven.
Yes, every day.
I'm
only
in heaven now.
But he's a yogi. He's not even breathing, let alone eating.
But it's a prasadam. It's a prasadam.
See you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's knowledge. So knowledge is compared to a boat that can help us cross over this material world and become detached from sense gratification, where we're thinking we're the body and we can enjoy this body in the material world. So in ignorance and illusion, we think we are the enjoyers of this material world and we are the controllers of this material world. Hopefully COVID virus helps us to realize that we're not in control of this material world. We are helpless and we're not enjoying, we're suffering, and that we should want to leave this material world. So in that way, these miseries like COVID virus, help us to snap us out of illusion and help us to realize the facts that we're all very insignificant, very helpless. Isn't it this tiny little virus or whatever, you can't even see it, and it's like killing us all like that one by one. So we're so tiny, we're so helpless. And even with the powerful science and all these kind of things, technology, but everyone is so helpless. Even the scientist is dying of COVID like that. They can't even
doctors, a lot of doctors died.
Yeah, doctors and scientists, and even, even that, the Prime Minister of UK, he nearly died a while ago. So
and then Queen took it. Queen took that a jab, and then but how old is she? 90 something.
Abhay.
Yes.
Here's a quick story. I have a dear friend called Nigel. He's got an older brother that's 70. Right. So Nigel's about 68. So his brother lives in England.
Yep.
Right. So about a month ago, he went into hospital ill and was diagnosed with kidney problems, right? And then the next diagnosis was, bear with me, cancer.
Yep.
And then only a week or so later, he died of COVID.
Yeah.
How's that for no control?
Yeah. But see, even with this COVID thing, it's really hyped up and that's all part of the plan of a lot of materialists too, to create all this hype so that to control the masses and so forth. But see, normally people are so diseased with, like you mentioned, Bob, so many things, cancer and kidney failures and this and that. And then the COVID's just what finishes them off. But they're on their way out through so many things, and then the COVID's just the thing that tips them over. So yeah, it's painted as a very big thing, but the main thing is that the material world is just this is the suffering of the material world, is disease, so many diseases. COVID is just one of the many, and old age, and then ultimately death, so whether it's death through COVID or death through a car accident or just normal old age or whatever like that, but these things are there. And then after death, then you get stuck in another body somewhere. So
we don't know if it's this planet or some other planet, who knows?
Yeah, so this is the thing, and that was mentioned as what knowledge is, as the awareness of the misery of birth, old age, and disease and death. We have to become aware that this material world is suffering with these four things, and that any sane person should want to get free from these four things. Yep. Anyone that doesn't is crazy. Is completely
ignorant.
Crazy.
He's ignorant.
Yeah, they're completely ignorant. If they don't think that's a problem, being in a world which is full of birth and old age and disease and death, then that's very ignorant. So they've got a long way to go. So that's part of knowledge, is to realize this material world with these four factors is not good, and that we should naturally want to get out of that. Why should we naturally want to get out of that? Because our nature of the soul is to be happy, it's to be blissful. So that's our nature. Our mistake is that we're trying to be happy in the material world, and that's the thing which is
not going to happen.
Yeah, which is not going to happen. I mean, the world's full of these four things. How are you going to become completely happy in this world with these four things going on all the time? So this is obviously, we're not going to find the real happiness here. The real happiness does exist, but not here. It's in the spiritual world.
Yeah.
So therefore,
excuse me, team. I have to go. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Now, you know how much I love the lessons. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Ave.
And what's your name? What's your name? Haridas.
Haridas, that's it.
Haridas.
All right, I'll see you at Kirtan.
Okay.
Take care.
Haridas.
See you next Thursday.
Okay.
Okay, see you then, Bob. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure. So yeah, let's continue that purport. Got another 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So after passing through many, many births,
when one perfect in the knowledge surrender unto Krishna, or when one attained Krishna consciousness, then everything is revealed to him, as everything is revealed by the sun in the daytime.
So just a sec. So in addition to what I said already, Bhakti Mala, about your question, does one have to know everything? As soon as we surrender to Krishna, then it's saying here, Prabhupada's saying, then at that time, everything will be revealed to him or her. That's pretty far out, huh? So if you just surrender to Krishna, even though you might be, Dumbo, Bozo, number one, if you just surrender to Krishna, then Krishna can just enlighten you completely, give you everything. So we don't have to worry about knowing every single scripture and every verse and everything like that, but we should just mainly try to develop love for Krishna through chanting and hearing about him and rendering service to the devotees and trying to please the devotees and so forth. And as we can surrender to Krishna, then Krishna will be so pleased and he'll enlighten us with whatever we need to know.
Everything is Krishna's arrangement.
So this process of Bhakti Yoga, one of the beauties of it is that the knowledge is revealed to you. It's not something you have to just struggle to achieve and, you know, academically and everything and learn like at school or whatever. You have to memorize so many things. Of course, that's there. I mean, like I try to learn verses and stuff like that, but it's not like I spend my whole day doing that. And because I enjoy doing that, you know, remembering, you know, what Krishna said and everything like that. But the important part of the process is what we're endeavoring to do is just trying to please Krishna. That's what we're endeavoring to do. No, we're not that we're just endeavoring just to know everything about Krishna. I mean, no one knows everything about Krishna. Krishna's unlimited. Krishna's unlimited. So you can't know everything, but we're endeavoring to please Krishna. And when we surrender to Krishna, Krishna's so pleased that he will enlighten us with everything we need to know to get out of this material world. So that's good news. That's good news, even if we're not super academic or whatever like that, or we've blown up our 99% of our brain cells with drugs and so forth in the past. That's a big problem.
Oh no, I didn't.
Society.
Yeah, the living entity is believed by in so many ways. For instance, when unceremoniously think himself God, he actually falls into the last snare of nescience.
So this is the lowest. This is the lowest or the deepest ignorance, to think oneself as God. This is the final point of ignorance.
That himself is a dog.
Yeah, so if he thinks he's God, he's actually a
dog.
Yeah. Yeah. Continue.
Okay. If a living entity is God, then how can he become bewildered by nescience?
Yeah, that's the first question. Hey, mate, if you're God, how did you get into illusion? Does that mean illusion's more powerful than you? Then illusion must be God. Because obviously God means the most powerful. So how can God come under illusion? If we've come under illusion, it means we're not God. So if anyone says they're God, that's the first question you should ask them. Then if you're God, mate, how did you come under illusion, under Maya?
Ego. Okay. Does God become bewildered by nescience? If so, then nescience or Satan is greater than a God. Real knowledge can be obtained from a person who is in perfect Krishna consciousness. Therefore, one has to seek out such a bona fide spiritual master and under him learn that then what Krishna consciousness is. For Krishna
so the point is there that you can only get real knowledge if you're Krishna conscious, right? And then Prabhupada's taking that the next step. How are you going to become Krishna conscious? That's
under bona fide spiritual master.
Yeah, no other way. You can't become Krishna conscious through any other process than by the mercy of a devotee. Krishna is only revealed only by the mercy of a devotee.
Yeah.
So there's a verse saying bhaktya sanjayata bhaktya, that bhakti comes from bhakti. So you can get bhakti or devotional service only from someone that has
only from bhakta.
Yeah, from the bhakta. So bhakti comes from bhakti. You can only get bhakti from someone that has bhakti. You can't get bhakti from any other way. It has to be from someone that has bhakti, gives bhakti to you. So you have to approach the guru, the pure devotee of the Lord, and get the bhakti from them, the Krishna consciousness from them. That's the only way. And therefore, the bhakta is very dear to Krishna.
Yeah, Krishna lives in their bhaktas.
Yeah.
He said that when bhakta walk, I put my hand on the ground. If the bhakta walk in there, he's just like so much care about his bhaktas.
Yes.
Prahlad was one of the Shuddha bhakta, the pure devotee.
Yeah.
For Krishna consciousness will certainly drive away all the nescience as the sun drives away a darkness, even though a person may be in full knowledge that he is not this body but transcendental to the body, he still may not be able to discriminate between soul and supersoul.
Okay, so that's an important point. So the preliminary knowledge, the beginning knowledge, is to know that we're not the body, we're a spirit soul. But and some people have that knowledge. The impersonalists have that knowledge, the Mayavadis. But there's a more higher knowledge than that. That's not the final point of knowledge, just knowing you're not the body. That's the beginning of knowledge, that you're the soul. Further knowledge is to know the supreme soul, and that qualitatively we're the same as the supreme soul, but not quantitatively. Quantitatively, we're very small and he's very great. So that's higher knowledge. So it doesn't mean that automatically someone knows they're a soul, that they know everything.
No.
You understand that? It's important.
Yeah. However, he can know everything well if he cares to take shelter of the perfect, bona fide Krishna consciousness spiritual master. One can know God and one's relationship with the God only when one actually meet a representative of God. A representative of God never claims that he is God, although he is paid all the respect ordinarily paid to the God because he has knowledge of God. One has to learn the distinction between God and the living entity. Lord Krishna therefore stated in the second chapter, verse 12, that every living being is individual and that the Lord is also individual. They were all individual in the past, they are individual at the present, they will be continued to be individual in the future, even after liberation. At night we see everything as one in the dark, but in day, when sun comes up, we see everything is in the real identity. Identity with individuality in spiritual life is a real knowledge.
So nicely said.
Yeah, it's
so this is real knowledge, what we're hearing here from Prabhupada. This is the real knowledge.
definitely. Jai Jai Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada.
So individuality and spirituality. That's real knowledge. That God is an eternal individual, and I'm an eternal individual, and Gulshan is an eternal individual. But
Always have, always will.
Always have been, and in the present we are, and in the future we will also be. We're eternal spiritual individuals, and that's never going to be lost. So this is spiritual knowledge. And this is where the love is generated in the relationship between these eternal spiritual beings, loving relationships. Otherwise, there can't be any love. If that individuality was lost. So we don't want to consider giving that up for any reason. Then life is boring. No relationships.
As long as I've got Gita, life is not boring. It's plenty in there. Every time you read, it's different chapter, different meaning comes up. I don't think for my entire life I can understand Gita. Gita is Krishna. Every single word is come out of Krishna's mouth.
Yeah.
What more?
So when you read the Bhagavad Gita, you're actually associating with the person Krishna and the person Arjuna. And with the person Prabhupada.
It clearly says in the Bhagavad Gita, every verse, like what's left? Where you gotta go? See, Bhagwan say these things in that word. That is it. That's it. You gotta be nowhere. Like sunlight is Krishna's energy. Everything is energy. You know? Without sunlight, we can't grow anything. No vegetable, nothing. Okay. Well, I'm gonna go make some salad.
Yes. How's the bhakti tree going?
Going good. We got a Friday, Saturday catering. I'm gonna make a 1 bucket salad lunch, 1 bucket salad dinner, and Vishwambar has to do He's doing a lot of work, Vishwambar, 12 hours a day, because he do South Indian as well as buffet.
On Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, but every day, buffet, puri, paratha, veggie nugget, everything he does. He's the only one because they've already left. We do help, bit of cutting and all that, but end of the day, he does a lot of work.
Are the lunches more busy now than they used to be?
No, same. Same. Lunch is like a Tuesday, Wednesday, not busy, but Thursday onwards are. And dinner is like a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. They're quite busy. Weekends are busy as usual. So one chef left, so all the burden come on the Vishwambar. But he's a solid man. He's like a 10, 11, 12 hours a day without any stop. He just do that. It's a mercy of Krishna. It's a Jagannath's mercy. He's doing that, so it's just good. We help him as much as we could.
Yes, of course. Yeah, we should.
We all here to help and keep the wheel growing, that keep wheel rolling. The bhakti trees keep rolling. No problem at all. We got a Jagannath.
Yes.
That's it. We got a Rath Yatra 7th of March. Are you coming?
I wish I could, but I don't think they're going to let me, especially without a vaccination.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's okay. No problem.
We just had one here in a nearby town. We just had a Rath Yatra a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, beautiful. That's great.
It's very nice. Very nice.
That's great. We're going to have in March. Same one.
Yeah,
same spot. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Okay, take care. Hare Krishna. Lovely to see you.
Love to see you.
Okay. How have you been, Bhakti Mala?
Yeah, good, thank you.
How's your health?
I think it's still recording.